I'm going to attempt to do a demonstration of a red rosebud that's just opening up. My light source is coming from here, so I know that this side will be light and this side will be in shadow. I'm going to start with one petal. I'll wet it. And I'm going to be using bright red. I'll apply the paint only next to this petal and let the rest run out. The principle being, this petal makes this area darker, but the edge will be lighter. In this method, I can work different areas while that area dries. So I'll go to this petal. Again, I'll wet it. And in this case, the darkest part will be down here. So I'm just applying the paint right next to that and letting the rest bleed out. While that dries, I can move over here to this area, which will be in shadow, but we'll still start with the same color and the same principle. Now you can see already the variation as it dries. This one's getting lighter, that one's darker, this is yet darker. This method that I use usually requires several applications. Now this area will have light on that side and dark next to the next petal. So what I'm going to do is apply the paint so that I can get the shape of the petal, and then I'll wipe out so that it doesn't bleed too much, and I'll end up with white on that petal. This area will be dark, so I can do it. The inside will be in shadow. This is the interior of the bud. Again, I'm applying paint where I want it to be the darkest, and then letting it bleed to the other side. I can also kind of guide the paint a little where I want it to fill in the whole thing with a little bit of color. Now this petal down here will be partially in shadow and partially in light. So I'm getting it just a little bit wetter because I'm using a small brush, but it's a bigger petal. And I'll also have to pick up a little bit more paint because I'm covering a bigger petal. And I'm going to apply it right next to the base of the rose, and then come back and do a sweeping motion across that petal. I'm going to just add a little bit of water right to the edge to help that try to bleed a little bit more. Sometimes you can end up with a bloom if you add water, but I took a chance and I think it's going to be okay. This petal will basically be in light. I'm going to put just a tiny bit of red here, there. And then this area will be mostly dark. And in this case, I'm wanting more dark down here. So I'm going to guide it back to there. You can see all the variations that I'm getting already. By adding more paint while it's still wet, you can overcome the tendency for blooms a little bit better. See down here, I'm getting a bit of a bloom, but it won't be a problem once I put the next layer on. And this area will be in shadow. Actually, I'm going to switch to a larger brush for this part of the petal. Whoa. That's a no-no. Because this part of the petal, actually it's not the petal, it's the base of the rose. So it's going to happen just a little bit differently. In this case, I'm going to use a little bit wetter paint. Kind of a sweeping motion, and then preserve the white area here where the light will be. That'll bleed in some, but not a tremendous amount. So at this point, we're going to have to let it dry, and then I'll come back in the next step and continue on.